Last time in the first 12-hour sit, I also gave a Dharma talk. I spoke of the threat, the fear that some of you may feel, and how this can also be an opportunity to really open up in our practice, whether we are busier than ever, for example, if you're in the medical profession, or if you find you have more free time than ever, working online and so on. Either way, the present circumstances can be a great opportunity to see your practice through. Let us work together online to do this. I spoke last time about practice being constant and complete. Constant in the sense that it must come to be the way that we are, and not just something that we do for a while on our cushion and then get up and do something else. As we give ourselves to the practice, it doesn't begin when we sit down, and it doesn't end when we get up. This is a good point in the practice, and it's where it is important to continue on, to let the practice be the completeness that it is. I don't mean that it has to be formally perfect, but rather that it comes naturally to include everything. Nothing is excluded. This is intimately connected with the practice being constant. It also comes to be complete. Simply put, we cannot step out of it. No matter what happens, what situation we find ourselves in, we do not leave the practice. That becomes the practice. That is the practice. This is also a good point in the practice to see. It's no longer something that we can leave, depart from. But again, how to continue that practice on there is essential. I also mentioned in the last Dharma talk the danger of the fixed views we may have, a fixed set view of, for example, what I am, what you are and will continue to be, what the world is. With these fixed views, for sure, we do see something. Yes, we see something, but more fundamentally, we are blind. We blind ourselves to what is really right here underfoot by locking ourselves into this fixed view through myself. In giving ourselves to the practice, we naturally let go of those fixed views. First, we may be a bit shocked in seeing that we have them. But once we do, and we are truly settled in the practice, they can dissolve of themselves. The insecurity that created them and holds on to them naturally dissolves. Another danger I spoke of last time is the danger of running toward some enlightenment, some goal, using our practice as a vehicle to get to that place where all my problems will be solved. How this can really be not running toward practice, but running away from the real practice that is right here underfoot. Please beware of this. Another danger I mentioned is, in a sense, the opposite of just sitting there self-satisfied in your little world. This is no better or worse than chasing after something. In all of this, we can see what is going on, can't we? If you really give yourselves to the practice, it becomes clear, doesn't it? In all of this, it is the self seeking to put itself to rest, seeking to get free from itself. If this is really clear, finally, the self, that delusion, the self-delusion that is the delusion of self, can finally see what is there. The very need to be set free is set free. This is not an experience that the self has, big, small, better, or worse. It is letting go of the very need to be somewhere, something, someone. This is release. And when we really are released, it is not that I am released or you are released merely. It is the release of everything. That's why the first noble truth states, numberless beings set free. This is really the first vow, and it is not just an empty promise. It is a fact that must be realized if we are serious about the practice. This is, in a word, the work of love, of great compassion, and it's the beginning, in a sense, of another practice. Let us look at that practice now for the Dharma talk today. In a word, keep the practice close to home. Of course, physically, more or less, we have to do this because we cannot meet each other physically. We don't have that freedom. Okay, we are now meeting online. It's not the same, and yet we can make use of this opportunity. So I'm not just talking about whether we can be in the same room physically, but to really keep the practice close to home, truly close, truly intimate, is not to borrow anything from anywhere or anyone, not to take some words or some teaching and become intimate with them. It can be helpful, of course, but finally in our practice, we must get really close to home. We must drop those most precious teachings that we have memorized. Really to become intimate, not to borrow some teaching, some idea, or hold on to some hope or expectation. In a word, the real practice is not objectifying anything, not turning anything into an object which we then may run away from or chase after. To not turn anything into an object. That is all that zazen is. It cannot be objectified. If it is, it's not zazen. It cannot be turned into an object. That's precisely what zazen is. Do you see? Again, to keep the practice close to home in that sense, not to turn it into something, anything, even a goal to be achieved. As it's said in the Zen tradition, do not ignore the treasure in your own home and go chasing after something elsewhere. To truly come home, come to rest, to put an end to all seeking. This is essential, otherwise you're like a cat chasing its own tail. And then you complain about how hard the practice is or how frustrating it is. But it's you, the self-delusion, that's what's tiring and frustrating, not the practice. This is not tiring. This is not frustrating. It is not one single thing. I urge you, if you have not confirmed this in your bones, do not waste your time in dreams and delusions, even Zenistic ones. This is the practice of great compassion. This is where it naturally arises from, and this is where it naturally goes. We need more than ever to be of service to those around us in these troubled times. The answers today are not easy. They're not always clear. Often they're contradictory. You read the newspaper, you listen to your mayor, or your governor, or your president, or your prime minister. What is the truth? Well, let go of all the fabrications. Let go of all the fabrications, all the things you and others create in your mind, and see through it right here and right now. This must be the beginning, the middle, and the end of practice. I trust this is becoming clear to you through your own experience. If you are practicing properly, it comes to be the way you are. Then naturally, you give yourself even more to the practice. Naturally, it starts to manifest in the activities of the world, in the confusions, in the disagreements you have with someone. You realize you are not outside of the practice, and they are not outside of the practice either. This can be continually refined. Refined, yes, but the fundamental point can only be realized just under your own feet, in whatever situation you are in. It is always there. Stop running away from it. Stop escaping from what is under your own feet. That is what is tiring out. That is what is exhausting and frustrating. It's not the practice. The practice is not what is frustrating. See it through for yourself. Stop running into psychological stuff. Of course, there's a room for that. These are important issues. But it can also be a wonderful escape, can't it? Endlessly dealing with those issues. Don't ignore them, don't run away from them, but don't turn them into a hindrance that prevents you from really seeing through, discovering the treasure in your own home, in your own hands. Once you get truly settled in the practice, and this is clear, and there's no doubt, this is what must be done in this life. Even if it's online, I am here for you. We can always work together online through Skype or something. I don't know when I will be able to get to Europe or Mexico or Canada or the USA. At this point, I'm not even sure if I left Japan that I would be able to return to Japan, because I have permanent residence status, but I'm not a Japanese citizen. So I have to have a really good reason to leave Japan. And the one great matter of birth and death is not really big for the immigration, I think. Anyway, I don't know when we will be able to physically get together for a retreat, but the fundamental work must be done by each and every one of us. We can do that right here and right now. But if you do get really settled in the practice and it's clear what must be done, this is a very valuable time to make contact. Send me an email and we can Skype or something like that. It's not really one-on-one, but it's what we have in the present circumstances. Let us make use of it. Again, thank you, Leon and Max, for arranging this and setting this up. It's a precious opportunity to sit together for hours and hours and to join from all over the world and see that really we are connected. We are inseparable. I'd like to leave plenty of room for questions from out of the practice. Recognize that this is the real dojo, the real place of practice. Sitting on your cushion is nothing. That's easy. Having a conversation or an argument, perhaps with someone you don't get along with, maybe your boss or someone you work with. You can't avoid, but you don't get along with it. To see that that is the dojo, the place of practice, not making excuses or defenses or remembering with your fixed view what an idiot this person is, but just letting them be as they are and taking that in. And then you might find a different way of dealing with it. You may have to agree to disagree. That's fine too. But at least you can clearly and compassionately state your position. And if need be, then just calmly and in a friendly way, walk away. I don't mean to be cold. You're not feeling, you're dissociating from your emotions. On the contrary, by fully being there with it, you can't help but see through it. The result may be, I think that person is completely wrong. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. But there's a way to deal with that too. It's very easy to leap from there to the guy is an asshole in everything he has ever done and will ever do. You see what has just happened. Huh? You had a disagreement with someone, and now that person has just become the perfect asshole forever. You see the hole you have dug yourself into, not to mention the other person. And we know the pain and suffering that comes from it. But to really be there with the person, what happens? Sometimes, for example, you start to be able to see what's going on in their mind, the pain that they are in, the confusion that they are in, that results in their attitude. And then you can respond in a completely different way. You see? You start to see and, well, remember yourself. Yeah, I've been there. I've been there lots of times. It's really painful. And start to see that you share a common ground, despite your disagreement. You're a Canadian. Let me give a little plug for the USA, okay? Well, there's a lot of stuff going down there now. But as a child, what I learned as one of the principles of what it is to be an American is the following. I completely disagree with what you have just said, but I will defend with my life, if necessary, the right for you to say it. America has come a long way. But that statement is kind of the statement of a bodhisattva. Consider well. Huh? I completely disagree with what you have just said, but I will defend with my life, if necessary, the right for you to say it. I trust this will be of some help. We all, myself included, I have to go to the university on Monday. Most of my classes are online. But yeah, I have to deal with colleagues. I know. But it has become a wonderful dojo, a place of practice, to really see our own weaknesses, our own blind spots. Again, I'm not saying now, from now on, Max, you have to agree and say yes with everyone. No, but you can come out of that same place. Compassion. You can compassionately disagree. Does that help, Max?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to say anything else?
No. I'm going to be switching between the two screens to try to catch if somebody raises their hand. Marie-Claude.
Jeff, one of the 14 reminders said that we have to try to not to take care of any disagreement, however smaller they may be. Is this another way to focus on what we have on hand to work, or just? I'm trying to make the link between what you just said and the 14, this reminder.
Disagreement, however small, did I get that correct?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example in your own life of how that works?
Oh, I would say however smaller means it's not something about a big issue. It's just a burnt toast, or it's just little things of everyday life. This
For
is what,
example,
just let's say someone who avoid to say hello when they meet, just and so because this is a different view of seeing relationship, let's say, and over the time it can become something that an hindrance.
I see, yeah. It's a good example. Here in Kyoto, walking down the street, it's very important to do what we call aisatsu, kind of a greeting, if you see someone. Konnichiwa, good day or hello. But it doesn't always happen, especially everybody in Japan, pretty much always, but especially now, they're wearing a mask. And, by the time they've walked by, oh, that was the lady from the bookshop. I didn't realize because she had her mask on. So that some of it can be just an honest mistake. You don't want to start going hello to everybody. But to not be greeted can just be, next time I'll make a little more of an effort to greet that person, whether they greet me or not. Or it could be, as you're saying, in a sense, it's a small thing, but it can become a very big thing if we start obsessing about it, right?
Yeah.
That person didn't greet me, and therefore, what an evil person they must be. You can build that into a whole, it can become very, very big. Or you can simply, he didn't greet me, she didn't greet me. And perhaps next time I'll make a little more of an effort to greet them myself. In Kyoto, you have to be careful, Marie-Claude. You've been here, huh?
Yeah.
When I go down the street, I have a son and, a little boy. Everybody says hello to them. So as a result, now I'm the daddy. Everybody says hello to me. And this can be pretty complicated in Kyoto because it can take about 5 minutes to get down, to the river saying hello to everybody. And once you say hello one time, that's it. You always have to say hello to them. So these little things can become pretty big, Marie-Claude. I'd keep an eye on it, okay? Someone has their hand raised. Marie Lloyd, is it?
Am I audible? I think I've unmuted. Am I audible? Thank you. Yes. So for many, many years, I was able to go very regularly for sessions to the Montreal Zen Center. And of course, as you know, Jeff, our teacher died. And also, I had no idea how rich, I had no idea how rich I was. So I also was welcomed when I first started practice, 25 years ago. I was welcomed into a very good, tight sitting group here. So we always sat on Sundays. And I retired early so I could get to the Zen Center. I was able to do 7-day sessions. It was incredible. But the sitting group, people have died. People have moved away. There's no longer a sitting group. It's possible for me to get to the Zen Center sometimes, yes, but it's remarkable how a practice can collapse in the absence of a steady group. I found it really difficult to carry on alone when I had an incredible amount of support. This is very supportive. I have no complaint with Zoom. It's very supportive. just to see other people undergoing. It's really wonderful. And I thank you deeply, all of you who brought us together for this. It's very much richer than sitting alone. So I don't know. It is a question and a problem, and maybe other people are in the same boat. They maybe don't have a sitting group anymore, and maybe it is difficult for them. Of course, now with COVID, nobody's practicing together, I guess, too. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jeff? Maybe you've had students who have been in that situation and
I would take it as a good opportunity for you to practice on your own. And maybe over time, people will start to come together again. We don't know how this situation with COVID-19 is going to play out, but we can continue our practice as we are. And as you say, rightly, these kinds of gatherings are precious. But it's important and valuable to sit on your own as well. I would urge you to find the value of that. I don't mean become a hermit, but that you need to be able to sit on your own and see the value of that, as well as sitting with others. Sitting with and for others is also very important. But yeah, if you're alone, sit alone. Okay?
thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have a question. I've been reading a book about the Eightfold Noble Truth recommended by Gabriel. It's written by Bhikkhu Bodhi. It's really, really good. And I know that we don't talk directly about the Eightfold Noble Path in Zen, but I found it essential for taking the practice to the world. You know, I find it essential, and I feel that I cannot keep practicing not attending and going very deep to the Eightfold Noble Path, even if it's not very, we don't mention it in Zen often. Can you say something about that?
Well, as you may know, I like to say that in Zen, we don't talk much about the Eightfold Noble Paths because we have trouble remembering all 8 of them. But yeah, we don't go usually up to 3 or 4. Sometimes even 1 is a lot for us. But anyway, as far as I can see, I completely agree with you. I spent time studying Buddhism and studying the Eightfold Noble Paths and trying to really figure out, there are different ways they can be grouped in terms of the practice, in terms of living out in the world, and so on and so forth. But when all is said and done, as far as I can see, the Eightfold Noble Path is simply a way of making it clear that the practice must be done in every aspect of our lives. When we eat, that has to be the practice. And when we sit, of course, that has to be the practice. If we have a job and we go to work, that also has to be a part of the practice. So the term right, correct, which is applied to all of these, there is a way to do it properly and there is a way to do it improperly. Even meditation, just because you're sitting in this posture doesn't mean you're doing right concentration or right meditation. So to me, it's always been very valuable to divide it up like that and to see it's not just about entering samadhi, deepening into jhana and having some kind of awakening, but it's something that must be in and as every aspect of our life. It's a very simplistic way of dealing with it, kind of almost reductionist maybe, but that's the way I see it. Would you like to add anything to that, Leon, from your recent experience reading and practicing with them?
Yeah, that, usually, okay, I do zazen since many years, and sometimes, or in the past, I think, okay, if I sit more and I sit properly and I go to Japan every year and everything is going to be all right and I'm going to develop and have insight and all that, But now, starting and digging deep into the Eightfold Noble Path, I think that I have to revise all my code of ethics, all my code of ethics, all my ethics, how I speak, how is my greed, my aversion, and other things. And I don't think I'm gonna achieve that sitting more. I mean, it helps. Probably I can see it more clearly, but I think it's imperative to practice a little bit on the side, the Eightfold Noble Path. I mean, I think I cannot keep going on if I don't attend to some of my ethical issues,
Yeah, the right speech is very important. I often wondered, they often speak of body, mind, and speech, practicing body and mind and speech. What speech? I mean, body and mind. I guess speech in a way is kind of the body and the mind, hopefully coming together. To speak, you need a body, but you also need a mind. But there's a lot of emphasis on this correct speech, right speech. But when you see how important this kind of communication is with human beings, it's immensely important to be mindful, just to put it very simply, to be mindful in our speaking. It has always shocked me when I practice with people and we do zazen, as you're saying, we meditate a lot, many, many hours. And then as soon as it's over, it's like they're making up for all that they didn't say, and they're just blabbering, they're just spewing, I could never understand that. Once you're finished sitting, you get up with that mind and then you do what needs to be done. Speaking is an important human function, but we have to speak from here as well. Isn't that what you're saying? This must be a valuable part of our practice, not an escape from, the pressure that we had because you're not sitting properly, then you have this escape valve with, talking. No, the talking itself should be coming out of the same place. The practice. And yes, this takes time and care, consideration, but it's also a wonderful practice. Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Jeff.
Dennis has his hand raised.
Yes, can you hear me okay? Okay, good. I have this little app on my phone that's a timer. It's a meditation timer, it has bells. And it does all kinds of things that I don't really ever use, but one of the things it does is it logs the number of hours that you've meditated. And I looked at it one day and I was astounded of all the hours that I've sat on my butt. And that's only a small piece of it since I got the app. That's only a tiny fraction of all of it. And I'm amazed and disheartened that all of this time that I've been trying to do zazen, and I'm not sure that I've ever done zazen. It feels very elusive. All those hours don't buy you zazen. And I'm not sure what my question is, but it's if you will, a koan for me.
Mm.
to find out what is that I've been chasing after for so many hours.
I would begin by turning off the app, Dennis.
Right.
And also when you sit, if you have time, turn off the timer, 25 minutes, 50 minutes. Forget the timer. When you have a chunk of time that you can sit, and just sit through to the end. Just sit through to the end, not the 50-minute period. Sit through yourself, not as some willpower, some achievement. Is that still there in the background, Dennis? Somewhere to get to, someplace better than here. That's where you need to dig in and not let go. What are you running from?
I'm not sure what I'm running from, but I'm running to something that seems abstract. And I know that it's
Then
not.
throw it away. Throw it away.
Can't be
Throw it
good
away.
if it's an abstract.
If you're running toward anything, you're deluding yourself. That's not zazen, as you yourself said. And it's very important that you realize that. So many people spend their whole life just sitting there, self-satisfied in their little shell. It's much better to be painfully aware that something is still lacking, but don't put it out there. You know what I mean? There'll be a time then when I won't feel this way. See into the root of how you are really feeling now. You're still trying to get out of it. All you need to do, Dennis, is go all the way into it. It's right there. It's right.
John? Yes? Hi, yes.
I'm right.
I want to ask about the difference between delusion and ignorance. Is there a difference? It's the
Yeah, in Buddhism, there are many terms that are used. For example, what is the source of our dis-ease, of our suffering? And sometimes it's spoken of more or less as delusion, not knowing what really is. Therefore, we blindly seek something else, and then we just create more dis-ease and more dis-ease. It's based on a kind of delusion, a kind of an ignorance. We are deluded. We don't know the true nature of ourself and all things. So this continues on. Is there some original sin that it goes back to? Buddhism doesn't bother with that in a sense. It's simply acknowledged as the existential, experiential fact that it is. If you look into your experience, you can see that. It's very strange, isn't it, Martha? To delude somebody else is not so difficult, right? You can trick someone else, but the real point is, of course, the delusion, it's self-delusion. The self-delusion, really, that is the delusion of the self. Martha, how do you delude yourself? You're the one that's deluding, and you're also the one that's being deluded. How the hell do you do that? Well, does that say something about the nature of the self? It says it all. It says it. So delusion is often spoken of in Buddhism, but ignorance, you might say it's another way of seeing it. Because we are ignorant, the delusion continues. They're not really two different things. They might also speak of craving, tanha, blind desire, as the cause of our suffering, as in the Four Noble Truths. But it's not something else, you see? I would say it's like different ways of seeing the same thing. We don't know directly and immediately who and what we are. We are split. That's why we can delude ourselves. And because of that, we then try to grasp on to something somewhere else in order to fill the hole that we feel is here. But that's itself is the result of ignorance, because we have never been able to see immediately and directly the treasure that is here. Once you see that treasure immediately and directly, you don't go seeking again. You can't go seeking again because you realize you were carrying it around the whole time. You know the story of the prodigal son, huh? It's not just in Buddhism. But to realize that and to not realize that is what is called the state of ignorance. But it could also be spoken of as the state of blind grasping or of delusion. So I wouldn't worry too much about the different nuances. Buddhism doesn't make a very clear-cut distinction in that way. For example, if you look at dependent co-arising, different things are stated as the cause of that whole state of, the whole mass of suffering, as it is called. We don't have original sin, for example, the way that you will find in the Old Testament. We don't have that notion. But what you're talking about is what would be comparable to it. Okay? So I wouldn't worry about the differences in nuance. It's all one. Because you don't know who you are, you seek something else. And because you endlessly seek, you can never come to rest. And you are prolonging that ignorance, which is also distressful, which is also a kind of delusion. That's why I say that the self-delusion, that is the delusion of self. I'm trying to wrap all of that into one. Does that help, Martha?
Thank you.
We have 3 or 4 more minutes if somebody wants to ask something.
So, yeah, Leo, excuse me, I raised up my hand. I don't know whether you say it. I have a, primary question as for, Jive. That okay?
Of course, May, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I appreciate Jive's talk very much because Jive, speech very slow. I can get the meaning and Jive's voice very strike through. Every time I got a lot. Thank you very much. So today my question is, what's the importance of zazen? Jeff just said, when we are eating is a kind of practice, when we are walking is a kind of practice. But the reason I ask this question, maybe I want Jeff to emphasize the importance of zazen. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question because when you do zazen, you come to realize that that is the really difficult practice, to really do it. It can also be very difficult working itself out in the world. But on the cushion, there's no place to escape to. Of course, the mind can always escape, can always create a story, but once we are settled in the practice, it becomes clear what we are doing, and we can easily bring ourselves back. But it does require a kind of a discipline. So the sitting is very, very important, but it's not everything. It's not everything. But in order to bring this mind, right, which is sometimes all over the place, to bring it all into one, right, for a sustained period, you see how valuable that is. To do anything thoroughly, to do anything really well, we need that, don't we? Listening to your friend talking, you should be there fully, right? Not thinking about something else and playing with your cell phone, right? You should be there with them. Well, zazen is helping us to do that without anything in between. You know what I mean? You could put on music and become one with the music. I love that. I love that. Just being one with the music, or doing something that I love. But in zazen, in a very good way, everything is taken away, isn't it? You can't even really play with your hands. Even your hands, there's a formal way of putting your hands so that you don't manipulate them. Your eyes half closed so that you don't wander off, but you don't go into an inner world of dreams. So that the zazen, the meditation, is very, very important. But it has to work itself out in the world as well. Do you know what I mean? To once sit and let the seeking mind itself just come completely to rest and to see what is there. Then whatever you do, wherever you are, you could say that's zazen. Does that sound strange? Where are you now? Are you in Mexico or in
Oh,
China?
oh yeah, Jeff. So I based in Beijing, but now I stuck in Philadelphia.
Oh, in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Thank
You're
you.
with Juliana, I suppose, huh?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
This
Thank
really is a international crowd.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much for your answer. It's really helpful. Yeah, thank you.